Have you ever wondered how much gets lost in translation? We hear a single English word for a huge ancient idea and we just kind of accept it. But what if that one word is hiding a much deeper, more transformative meaning? Well, today we're going to dig into that. We're unpacking a few key terms from the Pali language to see how a closer look can reveal a whole universe of meaning.
So here's our game plan. We're going to start with a feeling we all know, that feeling of being displeased. Then we'll see how that connects to judging actions and words. And finally, we'll get to one of the most profound ideas in this whole tradition. It's a journey that takes us from a simple emotion all the way to a liberating insight.
For this explainer, we're basically going to become linguistic detectives. Seriously. We're pushing aside the usual English shortcuts and digging right into the original Pali texts. By looking at the context, the clues, and the building blocks of these words, we're going to uncover what they really mean. And this is so important for how we're doing this today. We're not just going to grab a dictionary and call it a day. Nope. We are going to build the meaning from its fundamental parts, piece by piece, just like the very first scholars had to. This way, we get a much richer and, frankly, more authentic feel for these concepts. Okay, let's jump in with our first term, anattā mano. This is the perfect place to start because it describes a state of mind that, let's be honest, we are all incredibly familiar with. It's that feeling of being displeased, dejected, or just not happy when things don't go our way. The cool thing is, the word itself basically tells you its own meaning. Let's break it down. An is a simple little prefix that just means not. Mano, that one's pretty clear, it means mind. And anattā, in this specific combination, means a state of being pleased or content. So you put it all together, an anattā mano literally means a not pleased mind. Simple, direct, and really powerful. And you see this word pop up in some really fascinating stories. Right here, you have this powerful king. He's got a divine treasure, a symbol of his just and righteous rule, and then poof, it vanishes. And his reaction? He becomes anattā mano, displeased and dejected. It just goes to show, no amount of power or wealth can make you immune to that basic human feeling of loss. But it's not just for kings losing their treasures. In this example, we have a young, kind of proud student named Aṅguttara. He gets called inexperienced by the Buddha. And what happens? The text says he became kupito anattā mano, angry and displeased. His pride gets a little bruised, and that exact same mental state of displeasure bubbles right up. And this example just brings it all home, right into everyday life. You've got a householder who's upset with her servant for waking up late. The result? Exactly the same. She becomes angry and displeased, kupita anattā mana. It's the same core emotion whether you've lost a divine kingdom or your servant is just late with breakfast. So what's the big takeaway here? That anattā mano is a universal human experience. It's that internal emotional kickback we all feel when our expectations get shattered. It cuts across every level of society, from kings and scholars to monks and servants. It's just part of being human. Okay, so we've got that internal feeling down. Let's move on to our next term, because this is where things start to build. We're shifting from a purely internal feeling, anattā mano, to an external evaluation of actions and speech with the word anattā samhita. And once again, the word itself is our roadmap. You've got which we know is not, then atta, which means something like purpose, benefit, or welfare, and samhita, which means connected with or related to. So anattā samhita describes something that is literally connected with non-benefit. It's not just saying something is evil or bad. It's saying it's unhelpful. It just doesn't lead anywhere good. The texts use this word to classify certain kinds of behaviors. For instance, indulgence in sensual pleasures is described with a whole list of negative adjectives, and it's all capped off with anattā samhitam, unbeneficial. The core idea isn't that pleasure is inherently evil, but that this kind of indulgence is simply unhelpful. It doesn't lead to well-being or spiritual progress. Now this is where it gets really fascinating. Here, the concept is applied to speech. The passage says that the Buddha avoids words that, even if they are 100% true and factual, are ultimately anattā samhita, unbeneficial. This adds such a profound ethical layer, right? It says that truth isn't the only standard for wise speech. Helpfulness is just as important. Okay, pause. Before we get to our final and probably most complex term, we have to draw a very clear line in the sand.
Anattā, that displeased mind we talked about, is a temporary, fleeting emotional state. It comes, it goes. What we're about to dive into, anattā, is something else entirely. It's not a mood. It's a fundamental doctrine about the very nature of reality.
So now we arrive at anattā. This is really the philosophical heart of our whole investigation today. This isn't just another word, it's a cornerstone of the entire teaching, a concept that completely reframes our understanding of who, or maybe what, we really are.
Let's look at its structure one last time. We have an, meaning not, and atta, which in this context means a permanent, unchanging self, soul, or some kind of core essence. So anattā is the direct negation of that idea. Now, it's not saying you don't exist. It's saying there is no permanent, independent, unchanging you to be found anywhere within your experience. And this is the classic way it's taught in the texts. The teaching systematically takes apart our entire experience, our body or feelings, perceptions, thoughts, even our consciousness, and applies the label anattā to every single part. It deconstructs the idea of a person, showing that every single component is impermanent and cannot be called a permanent self.
Now, you might hear all that and think, wow, that sounds kind of bleak, but the texts frame the realization of anattā as the exact opposite. They see it as the direct path to freedom. This quote says it clearly. Developing the perception of not-self leads to growth, not decline. Understanding this deep truth is actually the key to liberation from suffering.
Okay, let's pull all these threads together now. By looking at these three words, which all share a common root, we've actually uncovered this remarkable progression of thought, from a simple, everyday emotion to a really profound insight. We can see the whole arc now, can't we? We started with anattā, that personal, internal feeling of a not-pleased mind. Then we moved out to anattā, an ethical judgment about what is not beneficial in the world around us. And we ended with anattā, the liberating universal truth of not-self. It's a journey from me and my feelings, to my actions, to the very nature of reality itself.
So why does all this matter? Well, because language isn't just a bunch of labels. It's the very lens we use to see the world. A simple translation like unhappy or not self can completely flatten a deeply textured idea. By going back to the source, we get to rediscover that original richness, that precision that can get lost over time.
And that kind of leaves us with a final thought to chew on. We've just seen how a careful look at 3 Pali words can unlock an entire framework of understanding. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other profound ideas are lying right there, just beneath the surface of a simple translation, just waiting for us to take another look.